Hi guys, greetings of the day. Myself Vijetha Vardhan. Please welcome back to my YouTube channel to learn the subject called as engineering graphics. Now we have an example which is as shown that a pentagonal prism, 25 millimeter sides of base and 60 millimeter axis length rests on HP on one of its corners of the base, such that the two base edges containing the corner on which it rests make equal inclinations with HP. Draw the projections of the prism when the axis of the prism is inclined to HP at 40 degree and appears to be inclined to VP at 45 degree. So according to the given question, we have to construct a pentagonal prism, which is as shown here. Now the base is shaped for having a pentagon. That's why it is called as a pentagonal prism. Now the size is 25 millimeter and the height is 60 millimeter. It is resting on one of its corners of the base. It is to be rotated first in the clockwise direction so that it is resting on a corner, and then the axis is inclined with respect to HP at an angle of 40 degree. This inclination is 40 degree, and then the axis appears to be inclined, that is the beta angle is given as 45 degree. Now let me show you how to solve the problem stage by stage. Yes. Now, to go for a corner resting as I stated, so we have to use a scale and a pencil and draw a perpendicular line which is starting from anywhere on the XY line like this. And after drawing a line, locate two points at a distance of 25 millimeter, which I am going to show you now. Yes, now after locating these 2 points, keep the protractor at this point and measure 72 degree, and keep the measure protractor at 72 degree and draw a line. Yes, after drawing this 72 degree line on from both the points, now keep the compass at this point and taking this value as a radius, draw an arc over here, and without changing the radius, again keep the compass at this point and draw one more arc over here. And again, without changing the radius, keeping at the intersection of this arc and a line, we are supposed to draw one more arc over here, and in the same fashion, without changing the radius, from the intersection of these 2 points, we are supposed to draw one more arc over here. Now, after drawing these arcs, now we have to complete the lines, which I am going to show you. Yes, now once the pentagon points has been obtained, using HB pencils, darken the pentagon properly. And afterwards, taking a pencil and a scale, one has to draw the projector from the respective corners till it touches the XY line. And afterwards, we have to construct any 2 perpendicular bisectors like this to get the intersection point, which I am going to show you now. Now, after drawing these 2 perpendicular bisectors, the intersection point has to be identified, and then it has to obtain the axis position, and the axis position will also be drawn on the XY line. Then I am going to draw the namings for each and every corners, which I am going to show you. The respective corners is mentioned as AA1, BB1, CC1, DD1, EE1, and OO1. Accordingly, the front view, the height is 60 millimeter. So for which each and every projector what we are going to get here should be increased for a height of 6 boxes like this, which I am going to show you now. Now, after projecting the solids, the prism height, that is 60 millimeter, the 3 visible longer edges, that is AA1, BB1, CC1. However, DD1 and EE1 behind the longer edges, now you can see, if you are going to consider this as AA1, sorry, this as CC1, AA1 and BB1, and DD1 and EE1 is behind the visible longer edges. And afterwards, using your HB pencils, without forgetting, you are supposed to complete the bases like this. And then using a chain line format, you have to connect or you have to show the axis representation like this, and using your 2H pencils, don't forget to show the annotation which I am going to show now. Yes, now I have marked the points like this as A1, A, B1, B, C1, C, D1, D, and E1, E. Whereas the EE1 as well as BB1 are the invisible edges behind the visible edges AA1 and BB1. Now afterwards, we have to say that the initial position is completed. Now to go for the second stage, now we know that the axis is inclined to HP at an angle of 40 degree. Now when the base is inclined at an 40 degree, sorry, axis is inclined at an angle of 40 degree, the base inclination is inclined at 90 minus theta. Now, as I told you, since in the booklet, if you want to go to an axis, the axis will be slightly above the XY line after an inclination. Henceforth, we are rotating this base. The inclination of the base with respect to HP is going to be 90 minus theta. That is, theta is given as 40 degree. That is at an angle of 50 degree. We have to do that location. Now, we have decided that it is going to be rotated in the clockwise direction like this. When it is going to be rotated in the clockwise direction like this, now as I told, it is to be rotated in the clockwise direction. It is going to be rested on the corner C1 dash. That corner C1 dash has to be reconstructed on the XY line in your screen like this. That is on our XY line. Yes, after locating the position of C1 dash, as we know that it is inclined on C1 dash, now we know that the base inclination is supposed to be 90 minus theta, that is at an angle of 50 degree. Using a protractor, we have to draw the 50 degree line here, which I am going to show you now. Yes, after drawing this 50 degree line, now using the compass, measure the distance between C1 dash to A1 dash. Measure the distance between C1 dash to A1 dash. Then taking the compass with C1 dash as a reference, we are going to take that as a radius. We are going to draw an arc here, and this point we are going to mark this as A dash. Sorry, A1 dash as well as A1 dash as well as E1 dash. Now in the same fashion, using the compass, measure A1 dash to A dash. With A1 dash as a center, draw an arc. And similarly with C1 dash as a center, draw an arc, which I am going to show you now. Now, with the position over here, with the A dash as a radius, we are going to draw an arc, and without changing the radius, once again keeping it at the C1 dash, we are going to draw one more arc like this. Now to get the exact position of A dash and C dash, what is the thing we have to do it? Now let me explain. Now using the compass, measure the distance between A and E as a reference, with A and E as a reference. Then with A1 as a reference, and then draw an arc on the opposite direction diagonally, and in the same fashion, without changing the radius, with C1 as the center, draw an arc here. For the intersection points are going to be marked as A dash and C dash, and then whatever the image it is looking like here, the same image has to be reconstructed here, which I am going to show you now. Now you can see the same figure has been reproduced here. Then in your booklets, while doing the manual drawing, make sure that this 50 degree is the constructional angle, but the axis representation is given in the question. Henceforth, I am going to delete this dimension. Okay, and after deleting this dimension, and I'll make sure that using a scale and a pencil, keeping parallel to this point, I'm going to draw a line which is going to be extended till the XY line, and then using your scale and pencil and also the protractor show that this angle is 40 degree. Yes, after showing that angle of the axis is 40 degree, now we have to draw the top view. To draw the top view, one has to draw the projector lines from the present stage front view and the previous stage top view like this. Now say for example, to locate the corner of C dash exactly, we have to draw a projector coming from C dash like this, that is vertically, and the projector coming from C horizontally. Now the intersection point is going to be marked as the corner C. Now this point has to be marked as corner C. Now in the same fashion, we have to get the position of A, B, D, E, O. Also A1, B1, C1, D1, E1 and O1. Now to save the time, I am going to pause the video, then I am going to show you the complete projectors. As now you guys can see that after drawing the projectors from the respective stage front and top views completely without leaving a single corner, we have to mark the respective points as A1, B1, C1, D1, E1 as well as A, B, C, D, E as well as the axis position O1. And after finishing these points up to the stage, that is in your booklets, then start applying the rules of visibility. Whatever the first rules of visibility says that the boundary lines are always visible. So now let me define what is a boundary here. The boundary is going to be starting from A1. Now using HB pencils, I repeat, using HB pencils, well, A1 to connect it to B1 and then B, and after connecting it to B, then connect it to C, the corner C, then the corner D, then the corner D1 and the corner E1 and back to A1. So make sure that when you're going to join the points, those has to create the boundary. This is how we have to complete the boundary. Once the boundary is finished, the first point is completed. So what the second point says that identify the visible base, make those base edges as visible edges. Now, when an observer is observing the object from the top, now you can see when the observer is going to see the top view, the observer is above the object, hence the top base is nearer to the observer, and the top base must be a visible base. Now, using HB pencils, starting with D, join the line DE as a dark line, that is using HB pencils, and EA as well as AB. So this makes the visible edges as visible. Then what the third point says, identify the invisible base and make those base edges as invisible edges. Now you can say when this base is visible, obviously the bottom base is invisible. The bottom base edges which are not on the boundary line has to be represented as a invisible edges, for which one has to draw a lines connecting from D1 to C1. I repeat, connecting from D1 to C1 and C1 to B1 as a hidden lines using your scale and pencil. And then the last point, such of the longer edges either partially or completely passing through the visible edges are invisible or vice versa. That means this is the visible edge, that is the top base edge is the top base of the pentagon is visible. Such of the longer edges which are passing inside the space is invisible. Now which of the longer edges which are passing inside the space? Now if I am going to connect the longer edge CC1, it is going to be the invisible longer edge. And the BB1, DD1 are the longer edges which forms the boundary, so forget about it. Then the vice versa, that means if inside the invisible base there will be a visible edges, that is nothing but the longer edge EE1 must be connected as a dark line using a HB pencils. And at last, without forgetting, make sure that the axis representation has to be done in the form of a chain line, but unfortunately in the booklets that chain line is not going to be visible. So by this, the second stage is completed in all aspects. And after which you can observe the axis appears to be inclined to VP at 45 degrees. Now how to do this one? I'm going to show you now. Now, using your scale and a pencil, to avoid some of the laborious construction, what we are going to do is we are going to draw a line which is parallel to XY line, just a one box below or two box below, which is as shown there. And then starting from one of the end point or take a point anywhere and keep the protractor and mark 45 degree the beta angle properly. Now, after drawing the beta line, that is at an angle of 45 degree like this, that is a beta angle has to be represented like this. Now, after representing the beta angle as 45 degree, now taking your pencil, mark the point O1 anywhere on the screen, anywhere on the 45 degree line over here like this, and mark that as O1. And after marking this point as O1 and using the compass, I repeat, using the compass, one has to measure the distance between O1 to O. You have to measure the distance between O1 to O, and after measuring the distance, now using the same compass, okay, with O1 as the center, one has to draw an arc over here, so that by drawing this arc, one can get the position of the O over there. That is on the beta line, O and O1 has been marked. Now, after marking the position of O1, one can locate a point for a reference over there. And after marking a point, now the remaining points as A1, B1, C1, D1, E1 and A, B, C, D, E must be transferred over there. Now let me show you how to do the same. Now using the compass, measure the distance from O1 to E1. Measure the distance from O1 to E1. Now without changing the radius, keep the compass at O1 over here. Now, without changing the radius, now what we have to do is, we are supposed to draw an arc over here like this. Now to get the exact position of E1, again using the same compass, measure the distance from O to E1. I repeat, measure the distance from O to E1 like this. Now, after measuring the distance from O to E1, keep the compass at O1 and without changing the radius, draw an arc here. Now the intersection of these 2 points is going to represent the corner E1. Now in the same fashion, you have to project all the corners over here using the arc method. Now I'm going to show you the completed one. Now you guys can see that I have transferred the same image at an angle of 45 degree, the complete image. The reconstruction has to be taken at an angle of 45 degree. And after doing this reconstruction, now one can see that in this rotation, the top base is away from the observer and the bottom base is nearer to the observer. And then to get a third stage front view, what one has to do is, using your 2H pencils, now I'm going to show you to draw the projectors. Now draw the projector from one of the corners which I have taken as B here, and from this stage also I am going to take the corner B. What the procedure we have repeated, what is the procedure what we have done for obtaining this second stage, the same procedure has to be followed here also. By drawing these projectors, now this point is going to be marked as B dash. Now in the same fashion, we have to draw all the projectors from the front and top views and mark the respective corners, which I am going to show you now. Please do watch it. Yes guys, now as I told you, I have completed all the points which is required. Now after marking this the vertical and horizontal projectors, we have to mark the respective corners, but here your patience levels are most important because the number of lines are keep on increasing. Since and the square you had a 10 lines, but when it come to the pentagon, it will become to 12 lines because there will be 12 points. That is the 5 base corners at the bottom, 5 corners at the top, and the axis to position altogether 12 lines you are going to draw. In the same fashion, when you go to the hexagon, the number of lines will be keep on increasing. Only thing is we have to keep a patience. Now, again we will apply the rules of visibility. That is, boundary lines are always visible. Now, what is a boundary line? Now let me discuss the things. Now, using HB pencils, keep the scale at the corner E1 dash. From E1 dash to E dash could be a boundary, and then followed by A dash, then followed by B dash is going to be the boundary, and then whether it is a C dash or B1 dash, you put the scale like this. Now you can say C dash is passing outside, so henceforth C dash is a boundary. Then whether it is a B dash or C dash, now you can see when we are going to keep the scale properly, you can see C dash is the boundary, not the B dash. In this way, you have to decide the boundary, and now the D dash is going to be the boundary, and then E1 dash is going to be the boundary. Now, after completing the boundary, identify the visible base and make those base edges as visible base. Now, in this position, you can see that the bottom base is nearer to the observer. Bottom base is nearer to the observer. Hence, the bottom base edges has to be shown as visible edges. Which are the bottom base edges? That is E1 dash to A1 dash is going to be the visible edge. E1 dash to A1 dash. Okay. And then A1 dash to B1 dash is going to be the visible edge like this. Okay. And from B1 dash to C1 dash, we have to connect the points like this. And after which, now after marking the bottom base as visible, then the third point is that identify the invisible base and make those base edges as invisible. Obviously, the base edges, the remaining base is an invisible edge. Now, using your HB pencils, join this line E dash to D dash as an invisible edge and D dash to C dash as an invisible edge. And however, the remaining 3 base edges forms the boundary. And then such of the longer edges either partially or completely passing through the visible edges, visible base edges are always invisible and vice versa. Now, what is that meaning? Now, using a HB pencils, now keep the position of D dash and to D1 dash. Now we can say it is partially passing inside the visible base. Hence, this line, that is this longer edge, must be shown as invisible edge. Now in the same fashion, now you can see the edges, that is the base edges ABCD is invisible. That is A1 to A, if I am going to connect, it is passing inside the invisible base, hence it must be visible. Now in the same fashion, if I am going to connect B and B1, it is also partially passing inside the invisible base, hence it must be visible. And now you can see the remaining 2 longer edges EE1, BB1 forms the boundary. Henceforth, they are always visible. Now at last, not the least, you have to represent the axis, that is connect O dash to O1 dash properly like this. Now one can say that the problem is completed in all aspects. Now, if you are having any sort of doubts to solve these problems, please feel free to contact me. My contact details has been provided over here. Using this number, you can contact me, and also you can put your comments to comment boxes. And if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like the video. If you are interested, then you can share this video to all your first year engineering students. Once again, thank you very much for watching my YouTube channel. Thank you guys.